Yeah, I want to talk about this idea of listening. And in non-duality or Dvaita or whatever you want to call the message of not two, listening comes up here and there, but it's something that's really stood out and been super helpful, at least in my experience. For many reasons. Obviously, I grew up as a musician, so the idea of listening has always been quite useful for me. In recovery, addiction recovery, the 12 steps, listening has been super useful because there's this movement which they call self, and in that world they're not talking about the big S Ramana self, they're talking about the small s self of individuality, let's say. And self-reliance in the 12 steps is what has failed us. So relying on that sense of individuality is essentially misleading the boat. Yeah, and when we obey that sense of individuality, like the voice in the head, then things get very uncomfortable, essentially, because it's conditioned and it's reacting through self-centeredness, which is the only way that the head can see is self-centeredness. And when it sees through that direction, it's got you pinned, essentially, against everything else in many ways. So the idea of listening, maybe if I do more of these talks, we'll just talk about listening. And the reason that we do, Insky was talking about the music there, the reason that I do those things almost every day is so that we can sit back into listening, rather than talking. So you can kind of equate thinking and talking as the same movement in many ways. That thinking or talking inside the head is the small s self, which they talk about in the 12 steps. That movement is self-centered and it's conditioned. So it feels, there's a sense of doership. There's a sense that you're doing that thinking, that you're the one who's operating those thoughts and moving those thoughts and pushing those thoughts out. But those thoughts are conditioned because it's like they say in Advaita, there is no doer thereof. Yeah, those are conditioned thoughts and conditioned habit patterns which are presenting constantly. And one of those is the sense of me or the idea me or I. Yeah? So this is all part of thinking, conceptualizing, or you could say talking mentally. Relying on that, as far as the 12 steps is concerned, is self-reliance, and self-reliance is what is misleading us, yes? So rather than just listening, essentially, we're listening to something, which is the mental movement, and as we listen more and more to that mental movement, we get more and more misled because we end up relying on it more and more. And then our lives become more and more self-centered, everything is more and more about Jay, and that life gets more uncomfortable. Then I want out of that discomfort through drinking or drugging or sex or gambling or whatever I'm going to do, yeah? So this thing about listening in the message of not to comes up quite a bit. Because your nature as what you are, let's say from the Tibetan Buddhist standpoint as open space or whatever, is listening. It's open. And it's very receptive. As they would say in Buddhism, there's no outgoings, there's only incomings, yes? So outgoings would be essentially self, small s self, as thinking and talking. Just constant output going out, yes? Listening is super receptive. It's very receptive movement, and there's no reply, essentially. Whatever goes to reply or makes a move would be negated rather than followed or listened to in a way, yeah? You can hear what you're not. So this is like self-inquiry in many ways. You can hear what you're not. Not with the ears. You can hear sounds externally, obviously you're not those. But you can hear the head, you can hear sensation, you can hear the sense of me. You're aware of all of these things, yes? Except we obey the mental system a lot. So a lot of teachers have talked about listening. John Klein obviously wrote a book, a huge thing, and reading won't get you too far, because what is reading you can hear. So the more information you acquire, essentially you can hear the acquisition of information, and it just fires up the system that you're not in many ways. But anyways, teachers talk about listening. John Klein had this whole journal that he wrote. He called it the Book of Listening. Yeah, your nature as open listening in many ways. There's a statement from Nisargadatta which is quite influential, I feel, where he talked about listening. So I'm just going to reference that as give us something to play on here. So this coming from the great Nisargadatta Maharaj. If you don't know who Nisargadatta is, that's okay. He was a guy from Mumbai, India, probably one of the greatest proponents of Advaita in at least the 20th century. Let's say him and Ramana would be the guys you would read about most, maybe. But Nisargadatta was sold beanies, which are like little hand-rolled cigarettes on the side of the street. And he met a teacher at one point who said, "You're not the mind and the body," and then he saw that through, essentially. Yeah. And then he gave talks in his attic, as many of them do in India. I think every day he would give talks, and people would come visit and whatever. He'd smoke cigarettes. You can see videos of Nisargadatta on YouTube. He's wild. He's a wild guy. It's very entertaining to watch. Yeah? But this is a statement from I don't know where this came from, but it came from Nisargadatta somewhere. So he says, "The one which is listening, which you do not know, is you." That's the start of the statement. The one which is listening, which you do not know, is you. Meaning that what is listening, which you cannot know, is what you are. Yeah? So, this is one of the things about not this negation or not to, yeah? You cannot know what you are because you are it. So, like Ramana says, being ourselves reality, or like it said, you are what you're looking for. Being ourselves reality would mean that you are what you're looking for now. You cannot know that because the head cannot grab no thing. The psychological system can only know objects. The senses see form, the hears hear form, for instance, yeah? So the head cannot turn around to see open space, essentially. So you cannot know what you are, because you are that. You can really only know what you're not. So if you use the idea of hearing or listening, you can only hear what you're not. And if you take the Huangpo thing of what is being perceived is not what is perceiving, you can use that and say what is being heard is not what is hearing. Yeah, so you can hear sounds. Obviously the sounds are not what is hearing those sounds. When you listen to sounds around you, you see the head pop up. Now you can hear that, meaning you can perceive that, so it's not what is hearing or what is perceiving, essentially. And then you can see the head go, "I'm the hearer." Yeah, but you can hear that as well, so that's obviously not what is perceiving. You can know all of that, yeah? That's why when we give talks like this, I'm not telling you something you don't know. We're just pointing out something which is maybe so obvious that it gets overlooked a lot. The one which is listening, which you do not know, is you. So in a way, in a very defined way actually, you cannot become peace because you are peace. Whatever seems to be not peaceful must not be you, because you can hear it. Yes? That shuts a lot down, thankfully. It shuts a lot of seeking down, thankfully. The one which is listening, which you do not know, is you. And then the second part of the statement says, the one which you know is you, you are not. That part's amazing. The one which you know is you. You are not that. So when your head comes up and says, I know I am this, that movement is not you. Because you can know the head coming up and telling you that you know something. Yes? So if you can see that arise, then in a way you can hear that. You perceive that movement, and that means it's not what is perceiving. And then the head will present you with something else, another thought or idea, and then your head will go, I'm the knower, I'm the seer of that. This is like inquiry in many ways. A thought comes up, who knows that thought? Yeah. Obviously you can perceive an initial thought. Everybody kind of says that. Yeah, I know, I can see my thoughts. That's great. But when your head goes, I see the thoughts, we go with that one, essentially. So this is like inquiry. A thought comes up. Who perceives that thought? I do. Well, that I, you can hear that. You can perceive that. And when you search for that I inside the body, there's not some thing in there, which is a thing, which you can pick out as me, essentially. You can hear the sense of you. And you are the hearing of what you're not, in many ways. So the issue or the discomfort, a lot of times in my experience, comes from when I'm listening to. So the head is presenting all of these things. Then there's the habit of listening to that head. That would be the identification as self or as an individual. That identification of me listening to the mental system rather than just openly listening to whatever's coming up has me obeying that mental system. That mental system is programmed and conditioned under the idea of self-centeredness. So it's only thinking about itself and its self-referentiality as far as what comes up in that head. And it's comparing everything to everything else from its own self-centeredness. So even when you come to a talk like this, you're listening to my voice, and then your head is interpreting what I'm saying to your own self-referentiality. Except it's not yours because you can hear your head doing this. And then you go, well, who is that arising to? Me. And you can also hear the me. Yes? So what is being heard is not what is hearing. But this statement points out some few other things which are quite important. The one which is listening, which you do not know, is you. The thing that you could add to that is you cannot know the open listening because you are that. You are already that. Whatever is trying to become open listening cannot become that. You can know what you're not, essentially, but what you are as open space is listening, yeah? Like the space of the sky knows clouds, but the space of the sky, the clouds cannot turn around and know the space of the sky. The clouds cannot see open space. You understand? Yeah, that's great. So the one which is listening, which you do not know is you, and which you cannot know is you, because you are that already. And the one which you know is you, which is presented to you through the thought I or me. Yeah? When that thought I or me comes up, there's a sense that, okay, that's me. I know that that's me. He is saying, the one which you know is you, you are not. So he's negating that. The one which is listening, which you do not know, is you. And the head, the mental system, is really trying to know what I am as open awareness or spacious awareness, let's say. And the one which you know is you, you are not. So when your head goes, I know I'm that, you can hear your mental system present that to you. You are not that. And then the head will present the next thing, and you can hear it. So you're not that either. Yeah? It's great. It like neutralizes all the movements. All of it. And you really only need one statement to hit you. Like what is being heard is not what is hearing. So you can hear sounds, you can hear in a way the eyes, you can sense the eyes, you can sense the body. So let's say that's all being heard. You can hear your thoughts, and you can hear the sense, or you can hear the idea of me or I. And the hearing, which is hearing all of what you're not, seems to be ever present. The I, the sense of me, the sounds, the visuals, all seem to be changing. The emotions, the sensations all seem to be changing. But the hearing of that is unchanging. Open space. So really all we can talk about here is what we're not. Because anytime I turn and try to talk about what you are, open space, it's giving concept to a non-conceptual thing. So it's much more advantageous to just talk about what we can hear. Yeah? This is why we do so many of those listening things every day, pretty much, chanting and listening. Chanting and listening constantly. Because in a way it's a lot clearer than giving a talk like this. Because your head is trying to grab onto what I'm saying. And what is trying to grab onto what I'm saying, you are not. You can hear your head going off right now. Yeah? You can hear that. And that's wonderful because it's presenting constantly what you're not. Because you can hear it. Yeah? So if you want to practice listening more, listening starts with the ears, obviously. Listening to sound starts with the ears. And when you listen to sound, the head quiets down because you're doing something, yeah? And then your head comes up and seems to interrupt that listening. Well, if the mental system is interrupting the listening, yeah, that should cue something that maybe you're not the mental system. Maybe you're not the body with the ears that's listening. Maybe you are hearing before all of that, and that hearing is ever present. Huh? Right. So everything that you're aware of or can hear, you are not. And this is why negation is constantly touched on from like Ramana or Nisargadatta or Wei Wu Wei or these people, yeah? Negation. Because any affirmation or acquisition, let's say, okay, I'm going to do a bunch of stuff to acquire, is of what you're not. So what you're not is trying to constantly become what you already are. But you can hear what you're not. You can hear that. Not with the ears, but from before, you see? And that's amazing, because then you learn a lot about what you're not. And then in my case, I would see what was causing all of the discomfort of wanting to drink. Yeah? Or I could see what was causing these huge depressive swings. It was all of this mental movement, essentially, and I was taking myself to be that mental movement. So rather than what is being heard is not what's hearing, what I was living from the standpoint of what is being heard is what I am. And that's not the case. That's the beauty of this. The one which is listening, which you do not know, is you. So everything that you know in your experience, body, thoughts, sense of me, I, is not you. Yes? What you do not know and cannot know is what you are. So the way that you can sit into what you are is by seeing what you're not. Which would be the sense of listening. Because when the head tries to acquire things, it's coming through the thought system, essentially. It's coming through the idea of me and I, and that I is trying to grab things. And it will constantly try to grab what you are. In a way. Oh, that's great. The head wants to become peaceful. Yeah? It wants to become stillness, but it's not of stillness. It's of constant movement. What can hear constant movement is stillness. That's really good. That's good. Okay. Yeah. The reason I love these statements, or even the message of not to, is because it's not like a dispute, yeah? I'm really just sharing something that's lifted a lot of weight for me. Even in addiction recovery through the 12 steps, yeah? I thought I was going to get it. I was using the 12 steps like I was going to acquire and grab the 12 steps, and I was going to become, this was more through Buddhist practice and yoga, I, Jay, was going to become super compassionate, and I was going to see non-judgmentally and all of these things. Now that failed, really loudly that failed, yeah? The reason I love this message is because it put into contrast everything else, and it made very clear an understanding. What is trying to grab onto the 12 steps and what is trying to become ever compassionate cannot do that, essentially, because it's a dualistic system. This body and this head are a dualistic system, meaning that this head operates from self-centeredness. There's a sense of subjectivity in this head, and it's seeing a bunch of objects. That is 1, 2. Yeah? So the head thought that it was going to become non-dualistic, meaning the body was going to become a not body. And I was going to read all of the books, and I was going to do all of the stuff, and I was going to learn my way out of suffering. But what was causing suffering is what now is trying to learn. And when it got a hold of spirituality or the 12 steps, the head approached it the same way it approached everything else. I'm just going to take tons, and then I'm going to become great, essentially. But the sense of I'm going to become great is a conditioned sense. And when it was presented that I'm not that sense, and that I could hear that movement of me and the head constantly presenting all of the information and acquisition and things that it's trying to do, that maybe I was the hearing, then I was able to disentangle, not I, but I was removed from that mental movement. And when that happened, I landed in essentially everything I was looking for. And I could not know that. So when I look at this statement, the one which is listening, which you do not know, is you. So you cannot become you. Yeah? And that's when a lot of people leave these talks. Because the mental system understands that it cannot acquire something, but it really wants to become something. So it leaves this, and then it goes off and goes to something where it's like, oh, okay, now I'm going to get a bunch of stuff. But there's no peace in the getting. And I tried that, and it failed. So the one which is listening, which you do not know, is you. You cannot know what you are. You can only know what you're not. And when you see what you're not, you stop identifying with it, essentially. You stop grabbing onto it, and you land in exactly what you've been looking for, because you are what you're looking for. And then the head will try to acquire what you already are. It will keep popping up, and you can hear that. So the one which is listening, which you do not know, is you. And the one which you know is you, you are not. The one which you know is you. So if you sit back into the listening, what is being heard is not what is hearing. You sit back into the hearing, and then your head goes, I know that that's me, that ain't you. That movement of the head is also not you. That's why this is a negation. Great, Tressa. You just answered your own question there. If my head is telling me I'm confused, then that is what I am not. There you go. That's great. It's very simple in a way, which is why the chanting things are great, because they're not full of concept. It's just listening. And the simplicity of the message of not to can be confused by talking sometimes. Music in a way can be like clearer in some ways, so yeah. But essentially, you can hear your head trying to get this. You can hear your head constantly trying to get free, whatever that means to the head. So the mental system is just trying to acquire more free. It's trying to acquire peace. But the mental system is not a peaceful system. In many ways, you and I are not peaceful. Yeah? And you can see all of that movement from before it. Because you can hear the head. You can perceive all of that, and what is being perceived is not what is perceiving. And that shuts down a lot of the seeking, if not all of the seeking, because you can hear your head seeking for peace constantly. That head is conditioned. That mental movement is conditioned. It's in Advaita, specifically, they talk a lot about non-doership. In Buddhism, they would say there is no self. So, non-doership would mean that there's a movement going on inside, seemingly, which is presenting you as the doer of everything. The thinker, the taster, the hearer, the toucher, or whatever. Whatever's going on, the head is claiming it, and it's saying you're doing it, yes? But Advaita says there is no doer. So self-inquiry is simply looking at who is doing it. Who is the one who knows thoughts? Your head goes me or I. Yes? You can hear that. So you must not be the sense of me or I. Huh? You must not be that. I'm just going to look at this chat thing for a sec. Very interesting. When it comes to addiction, talk from this point of the 12 steps, if you know the 12 steps. There's a word in the 12 steps which is self. That sense of self is a small s self, and it's presented to you through the mental system. Buddhism says there is no self. Yes? But still there's self-centeredness, self-seeking, self-pity. So all of these words are based on this idea of self. Now Buddhism says there is no self. Advaita says there is no doer. So, if that's the fact, which I would take it to be if these things say that, there's still a movement going on, which is called self. Now there's a sense, that movement, mental movement, which is presenting the idea of me as the doer and manipulator of everything, is constant. It's just like a repetition. Sense of me, me, I. That is self-centeredness, yes? You are not that. So in recovery, or in 12-step recovery, that word self is what's misleading you, essentially. If something is misleading you, in recovery they would say self-reliance is what has defeated us. If something is defeating you, you must not be that thing. Something is defeating you, yes? So we end up listening to self. We are listening to the mental system. You understand? So you are listening to self, and relying on that mental system is misleading you. But you can hear that. It's the identification. So bondage, there's a bondage of self. That bondage is not a thing. There's nothing bonding you to the mental movement except identification. As it or with it, let's say. So when you hear it, you're listening to it rather than sitting and listening open. You see? So, yeah. That's kind of the principle that has been presented in this life, which has given a lot of relief. So when the head is presenting things to you, you can hear that head come up. The same way that you can hear the sounds of the birds, or you can hear somebody talking, or anything else. You can hear it, yeah? Now the only thing that's differentiating your thoughts from the sound of the birds is the label that those are your thoughts. If you were hearing my thoughts, they wouldn't affect you that much. But there's a label on them which is you, me. You can hear your head say me or I. So if you can hear something, you mustn't be that. So self-inquiry essentially is a little bit of an investigation. If I'm not that sense, who am I? Yeah. So, how do we stop listening to what our head says? Well, you sit back into the listening, essentially. So, when the head is presenting ideas, we're used to obeying them because one of the ideas that the head presents is me or my. And that me or my or I ties you to all of the things, all of the ideas that are coming up. Otherwise, you wouldn't be tied to them. Yeah? You would just be hearing them quite openly, the same way you hear the wind or the birds or anything else. Yeah? Except the word my or me seems to be really loud for some reason. Because there's a sense of you with that sound. But the sense of I is just another mental sound. Yeah? Because the thoughts are not what kills us. It's the sense of being the thinker. But you can hear the thoughts. That's quite obvious for everybody. But it's the sense of being the thinker of those thoughts which you can also hear. And if you look for that me or I somewhere inside your body, you will not find it. So essentially, when the head presents thinking, you can hear it. So you're not that. You can sense the eyes, physical eyes, so you must not be those eyes. You can sense the ears. You could replace the word sense with hear, so you must not be those. You can hear the thoughts, you must not be those. You can hear your head go me or I, that's right, must not be that. So what remains? It's like Ramana Maharshi would say, all that needs to be seen is the unreal. The unreal, essentially anything you can hear is seen in this sense as the unreal because it's not independent. It doesn't have its own existence, let's say. Yeah, so anything that doesn't have its own inherent existence is of the unreal because it doesn't have its own existence. Yeah. Sorry, I lost that there for a minute. I was just zoomed out. Yeah. So Ramana says to sit into what you already are. The only requirement is to see the unreal. Everything that you're aware of or can hear is of the unreal. How often is that happening? All day. Constantly. Constantly the head is just going. Yeah? You can hear it all day because what you are is ever present. The head comes and goes. It's very repetitive and incessant. But from what's before it, which is open, spacious hearing, you're just aware of it constantly. Yeah? And then the head presents the next thing and you're aware of that. So actually sitting down and practicing listening to sounds can be very useful. Because the head gets quiet and then it comes up and then you see it again. Alright, Insky. We'll see you again soon. I'm putting stuff online because I know you're on the back schedule. So you're on the other side of the world. But just go on YouTube. Everything's on there. Yeah. Alright. Good, good. Detaching from me or I. You know the thing about detaching, they use that word sometimes in text and stuff. You don't even have to look into an idea like that. Just stick with the listening. What is being heard is not what's hearing. Huh? If you just sit with that, what is being sensed is not what's sensing. You can sense the body. You can sense the senses. You can hear the head. You can hear the sense of me. Huh? Now that's all conditioned. You're not the doer of the mental system. So it's going to keep doing. One of the big misunderstandings is that the head is going to stop. The body is going to stop doing stuff. Yeah? This is all a mistaken idea. There's no doer thereof. There is no doer. There's no self. There's just doing happening. You can hear all of it. So sit back into the listening rather than to what is being listened to or heard. And you can then see, from my point of view, you can see the insanity of listening to or living from what is being heard, because it's conditioned. Your head is always referencing only the past or projecting to the future. It's never sitting on what's going on yet. Listening is happening now, and what it's hearing is presenting only past and future. Yeah. So if you're listening to what is being heard, which is the mental system, you're living only past and future, which doesn't even make sense because none of that's happening. So if you're listening to the head, it's saying, I'm going to get free in the future. Or I'm going to do a bunch of stuff to become peaceful. But the message of not to is saying you are what you're looking for right now. So whatever is presenting past and future, you can hear that. Yeah? And then when I say that, your head goes, I can hear that. But you can hear your head claim, I can hear that. So that must not be you either. Yeah? So he says, Nisargadatta, the one which is listening, which you do not know, is you. You can hear your head say, I'm not free. You can hear your head say, I'm worthless. You can hear your head say that I need to do a bunch of stuff to get free. You can hear that. But he is saying, what is listening, you cannot know. And you can know all of that. So what you know must not be what's listening. And the one which you know is you, which is the one going, me, I'm going to get this, I'm not free, I'm terrible, and then one day is going, I'm enlightened. The one which you know is you, yeah, which is that one, is not you. You are not that. It's beautiful. What is listening, you cannot know. He's saying that is you. The one which you know is you. When your head goes, me, I'm getting this, I'm not getting this. You know that is you, and he's saying that is not you. Ramana says, being ourselves reality. Being, not becoming. Being right now ourselves reality, and not becoming reality. Now the head is saying, I'm going to become reality, or I'm not reality now. You can hear that. You can hear that. So being ourselves reality, he's saying now. the only thing that has to happen is to see the unreal. Well, what you can hear is of the unreal because it's conditioned. It's not its own movement. Yeah. Inquiry is like an investigation into that. Man. So when your head comes up, it says, who is the one who can hear those thoughts? And then your head goes, me. You are aware or you can hear that me. And that means that there's a hearing of the sense of me. And he says, what you are, you cannot know, and you can know that sense of me, you can hear it. So you must not be the me which your head is presenting you to be. And everything comes after that sense of me or I. Depression and happiness are based on the sense of I, me. Liberation and bondage are based on the sense of me, I. Non-duality, duality are only worth anything from the I. From before the I, they have no value. Yeah. So listening and learning to listen is something I feel in the contemporary world that we have lost. It's going the other way. Yeah? This is becoming a super thought, talking, self-centered, dominated existence. And you can see it through the level of suffering and insanity that's going on in the world. It's very obvious, yeah? So rather than open listening, we are obeying something. We are obeying the self-centered head, essentially. And that has things very frantic and anxious. So relearning to listen is very important. And that listening starts with the ears, and it very quickly goes much more subtle than the ears. So when you listen to a talk like this, you're listening to my voice. You can hear your head presenting all kinds of ideas to you. And then if you question who is that head arising to, there's a sense of me, you can hear that too. So rather than trying to become what you are, I would rather, it's much more advantageous to see what you're not. Essentially, because that's the only thing you can do here. Because what you are, you cannot know, just like he says in that. All right. Great. So if there's any questions, you can feel free to ask. Otherwise, maybe if I do more of these, we'll just focus on this idea of listening, because it highlights the whole thing about not to. Because everything that is being heard, it presents two-ness. It presents me and other. Everything that you can hear is of two-ness. That is arising in a field, in an open space of awareness or listening or whatever you want to call it, that pervades the body and pervades everything else. That space is extremely receptive, and it doesn't have a lot of outgoings, meaning pushing out, which would be thought. The senses push out and thought pushes out. That would be of two-ness, but that space is open receptivity, and we could put the name listening on that space. So maybe we'll just talk about listening, and then the chanting and the music and stuff is all based on this message in many ways. It's a point of listening, which is extremely interesting because on an app like this, people hear music and the head immediately judges that music as good or bad. But the irony of that is the point of those sessions is to hear the head judging and just go back to listening. But that's not usually what happens. people obey the judging head, and they say that music is great or that music is bad from their own sense of subjectivity. Yeah? But that music, in many ways, is just a basis to begin listening with. So whether it's seen as good or bad, you can hear the head present that to you. And that sense of good and bad is based on the idea of me or I. Dang. And you can hear all of that. So you mustn't be that. Because what is being heard is not what is hearing. And what is being heard from the recovery sense is self, small s self. Fabulous. Oh, man. And then you get sat into like an open neutrality, listening. And then a thought comes up, you hear that thought, and you see something grab onto that thought. Try to hold on to that thought. Well, then it would be worth using a little hit of inquiry maybe. Who is grabbing onto that thought? I am. You can be aware or hear that sense of I. And then you back into neutrality in many ways. Yeah. So if you come to the music stuff, Insky was saying they've been there a lot. That music, those sounds are a point of listening. Yeah? To start to sit us back into listening rather than talking. The beautiful irony of it is as soon as people hear those sounds, their head starts talking about those sounds. They obey that head and say these sounds are good and bad. Yeah? That's all not of them. Those thoughts are conditioned thoughts of what they like and don't like as a body. Yeah? But they're not a body. They can hear it, but they're not. Music these days is seen as just I like this and I don't like this. We're not actually sitting or listening at all. We're listening only to the mental system, even when it comes to music that we should be listening to. Yeah. So we hear music, we hear sound, and immediately, really the only thing we're listening to is the mental system. So these talks are pointing out not the problem in many ways, or what causes the discomfort is listening to, not just listening. Yeah? And what we're listening to is of a dualistic, self-centered system. And it's not going to not become that. The head is only self-centered. It's not doing anything wrong. That's how it's programmed, with self-centeredness. So it's only seeing from its own self-referential view. If you're listening to that, then you are obeying it. And there's a sense that you're doing it, but you're being done by it. Through the listening to it, rather than just listening. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, any questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, maybe we'll cap it there, because there's a chanting listening thing in an hour. All right, so let's stop it there. I'll put some more of these in the schedule maybe if people would like. If you have other questions, you can always message me through the app here. And if you want to donate or whatever, you can do it here or through PayPal. And yeah, we're going to do a chanting music thing here in an hour, so feel free to come on back. And we can actually sit into what we were talking about there. Oh, there's a question here. What about when someone asks you how you're feeling and you respond with I'm feeling happy? Would that mean I am not? No, Tressa, the thing is, what is being heard, the sense of individuality goes on. You see? This is one of the misunderstandings. People think that when you sit back into listening, open space, that what is being heard is going to stop, or it's going to change, or that the individuality is going to become some non-body or something like that. This thing goes on, yeah? Advaita, and the message of not to is freedom from self. It's not as self. So when somebody asks how you're feeling, they're asking how is the body feeling. What you can hear from the mental, the thoughts and the sense of I, are of a body. When your head says me or I, it pictures a body, your body, yeah? So when somebody says, oh, how are you feeling? And you respond with, I am feeling happy, that's great, but you can hear that. So in an absolute sense, you're not that, which is feeling happy, which is great. That's freedom from rather than as. And freedom from is much more of a solution, because if you're living as what is happy, that thing, mental system and body, at some point are going to become unhappy, because this is a dualistic experience. Yeah? So if you are bound to happiness, you're going to be bound to unhappiness. But you are not that in an absolute sense. So whether it's happy or unhappy, you'll be okay. Because you are not that, you are what's hearing this thing. So what is being heard is not what is hearing. That does not mean that what is being heard is going to change this huge amount, or the body's going to end, or the head is going to end. There's no doer thereof. This is all conditioning. It's just happening, movement going on, action, let's say. You are aware of that action. And then the action goes on, because you weren't doing it in the first place. So it's going to keep going on, yeah? There's an idea when people hear this, that when they hear no doer, they think that starts today. No, there's never been a doer, you see? There's open, spacious listening, awareness, and then the contents of that awareness. You are of the contents of that awareness, because you can hear the sense of you. Yeah. So whether the sense of you is happy or sad, you are aware of both of those. And it will go from happy to sad, because this is a dualistic experience. Yeah? This experience of the body is dualistic. It goes one way and then it goes the other way. You can hear both. You can hear when your head goes, oh, I'm so happy. You can hear when your head goes, oh, I'm super depressed. You can hear both. This message is about freedom from that movement, not as that movement. When your head goes, I need to do this, and I'm miserable in this, that is the mental system. That is self trying to get out of self, which it cannot do. Yeah? That doesn't work. Freedom is from self. So whatever is being heard is not what is hearing.